Hunting for the perfect romance can be really exhausting. But hopefully today I can make it a little easier for you. You see, I was recently watching a video by Abby Young, Hair Care Queen, about her 3 top drugstore products in every category, and I was pretty inspired. It was like a compilation of curated favorites, but with a little bit of nuance, so that if you had, let's say, oily skin, you'd be able to find a great foundation. If you had dry skin, you'd find a great foundation, but only 3 things per category, so you didn't have to wade through a bunch of information to find something that works for you. So I thought I'd do that today with romances and tropes. 3 books for 10 of the most popular romance tropes in specific. Almost all of these books are 5-star reads for me, and hopefully one of these can be a 5-star read for you as well. You can relax and take your time with, because just like the sponsor of today's video, Fable, I don't care how many books you read, just that you do. Listen, reading is incredible. I feel like spaces like Book Talk and BookTube can give us really incredible recommendations to add to our ever-growing TBRs. But they also make us feel like we have to read hundreds of books every year to be considered a reader. I know for me, a few years ago, I felt so overwhelmed by my reading challenge number, and it made me really anxious just thinking about picking up a book. It made it something I didn't want to do, which I hated because reading is one of the greatest forms of stress relief in my life. What I figured out back then, and what Fable is making so easy to do right now, is encouraging myself and you to slow down. Consistency over speed. When I kind of zoomed out and realized again that reading is supposed to be fun, enjoyable, and stress relieving, I wanted to make it a part of my everyday again. Fable has made it so easy to also do this with their daily reading streaks feature. It's something that can motivate you to build a reading habit that encourages self-care rather than feeling super overwhelmed by the big reading numbers that you might see floating around you. People reading like 300 books. I mean, that's cool, but I think what's even cooler is actually enjoying what you're reading. When you click the home icon on Fable's app, at the very top, you'll see something that says, I read today. As simple as tapping that and starting to track your streaks. It feels so satisfying and so motivating in a way that isn't competition-based. No leaderboards, no competitions, no trying to one-up someone else. It's all about you and taking that time for yourself every day. Reading is supposed to be fun. I think, again, it's so easy to forget when you're caught up in BookTube and Book Talk that the whole point is the doing. It's the journey. It's not the destination with reading. It's the simple pleasure of enjoying books at whatever pace works for you. I mean, studies show that reading for just 6 minutes a day can dramatically reduce your stress levels. So you want to join me in developing an amazing habit of self-care when it comes to your reading. You want to get that nice stress relief in. Click the link in my description down below to download the Fable app. It's absolutely gorgeous. It has so much to offer, and it is really the perfect companion on your reading journey. So thanks to Fable for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Let's find you a read that you can love and luxuriate in. We're going to start off with arguably my favorite trope lately, which is fake dating and marriage of convenience. The first book I'm recommending to you is Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. I absolutely adored this book. I did up as a part of a little mini challenge that I had where I was going to try to read until I could find a 5-star romance. And this is the first book I picked up, and it just so happened to be a 5-star romance. It took me by surprise and was so charming. This book's about Alexi and Georgia, and it's sort of a green card / inheritance marriage where the team doctor for this professional hockey team ends up marry this gentleman who I believe is a Russian citizen. Not really an age gap between the two of them that I can recall, but he is kind of there in years, I guess, in his career, and that's part of the story, is these two sort of having these misconceptions about each other and about their respective careers, and also growing in their own respective careers. I think that Georgia has a little bit of like insecurity about kind of what she is doing. She has a lot of goals and dreams and wishes, but she's not feeling like super secure in them. And then Alexi, again, he is someone who is getting to be retirement age. Is, you know, kind of weird to conceptualize if you're not a hockey player. The idea of retiring in your 30s and then having to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. I really liked the depth of the story. I think that that is what sets this book apart from the others maybe on this list. I don't think every romance has to be like so deep to be incredible and fun to read, but the thing that I loved about this one was, again, these two having misconceptions about each other, forced proximity of their kind of fake dating, marriage of convenience. They end up breaking down those misconceptions and actually realizing that the person that they're dating or married to actually has an incredible character and is someone that they like actually really like. I loved this book. I thought it was so charming. Another book that is equally as charming and maybe a little bit deeper is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I'm sure everybody and their mother has read this book, but actually I think Abby Jimenez's books, this is maybe one that kind of flies under the radar. I think maybe her 2 most recent releases have been getting so much buzz that I think this one has kind of fallen to the wayside, but but the hero in this book, Jacob, he really makes the book for me. This book's about Brianna and Jacob. They are both doctors, and I would say most of this book kind of centers on Brianna and her journey post-divorce, trying to kind of rebuild her career and her life and figure out what she wants next. Her relationship was definitely an unhealthy one that didn't serve her. Now she is like fighting for a promotion, but unfortunately, Jacob, this like new to the hospital guy, new doctor to the hospital, I should say, ends up taking the promotion that she thought that she was not entitled to, but she'd been working really hard for. She kind of has a grudge against Jacob, but he sort of writes her an apology letter and is like, hey, I'm really sorry that this happened. I hope you can forgive me. And he kind of explains his situation. Brianna's like immediately kind of intrigued. They form this relationship, a little bit of correspondence, of kind of reluctant friends in person eventually, and then they end up fake dating for a reason I don't necessarily want to spoil, but it's a book that is very emotionally wrought. The book that I just talked about definitely has a little more depth than your average like KU rom-com, but this book in particular is one that will linger and stay with you, I think, for a long time. Jacob is such a delightful simp. I also really like when mental health is handled in books in a very particular kind of way. I don't like when it seems to overwhelm the story. Jacob is such a well-rounded person, but he is going through a lot as well, his own respective journey. So I love this book. I think many of you will love it as well. And lastly, if you want something that I would say is maybe the most lighthearted of all the books, but still does have a little bit of depth, Be the Frontrunner by Elsie Silver. This one is about a vet and a horse racing guy. I'm not sure what kind of title you give to a man who owns horses and tries to race them for money, but I believe his name is Stefan Dalka. He is kind of painted as the villain for the first couple of books of the series, so I was really excited to kind of get to his and understand kind of where he was coming from. He definitely has a hidden depth, which I really enjoyed exploring in this book. Essentially, the premise behind this one is that our hero, again, he owns horses, and he at some points is kind of trying to rehabilitate horses, and our vet ends up coming in, even though she doesn't like this guy, to kind of help him again with the rehab of one particular horse. He is like really taken by her, and they wind up in a fake dating situation that is just honestly really fun to read about. I liked this. I wouldn't call this a reverse Grumpy Sunshine. Both when heroine are kind of grumpy, which I actually found kind of delightful. I think having a groundedness in a story can be really nice. So I feel like I'm not selling this one particularly well, but if you like a small town horsey kind of romance, I think you might really enjoy this one. I really liked, again, the hero and his like redemption arc. Moving on to a very different trope category, age gaps / forbidden romance. I used to be so into age gap romances, and I feel like I'm slowly getting back into them with the help of, you know, the ever charming Allie Hazelwood, but you will not see problematic summer romance recommended in this trope category. I wanted to switch it up. Also, I don't think I told y'all, but I didn't select multiple books from any of the same authors on this list. They're all one of one, right? I could just fill this with Allie Hazelwood books, but I decided to branch out a little bit, okay? First up, we have Waking Olivia by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This is my favorite book from this author, I believe. I say I believe because I enjoy so many of her books, but this book follows Olivia and Will, and I think this age gap feels a little bit more tame to me because our heroine is either a junior or senior in college, and her coach for the cross-country team is only a few years out of college. He's like, let's say his mid-20s, and I really enjoyed this one. Olivia is coming to this university. She transferred from a different university because she had some trouble over there. She has a little bit of an attitude problem. She definitely doesn't want to be where she's at. She is kind of losing her passion for running, and she's dealing with some pretty challenging circumstances in her life. And Will, the coach and or the hero of this story, someone who really wants to help Olivia. It seems like no one really wants to be Olivia's friend or has ever tried to probe deeper, but Will sees that there is something there and he wants to kind of help her. It's sort of the point of this book. She sleep runs. That's why the book's called Waking Olivia. It sounds weird. It sounds a little corny, but if you're looking for something that feels angsty, a little melancholy, I think you'd really enjoy this book. That's something that I really like about Elizabeth O'Rourke's writing. I try to mention it as often as I can because her books just have a different tone than a lot of the things that we pick up. And if you're kind of sick of the same old rom-com that feels maybe a little bit too lighthearted, I think you might really enjoy an Elizabeth O'Rourke book. Next, I have a completely different book tonally, and that would be Lessons in Corruption by Gianna Darling. This is the first book in this MC romance series. I think if you have never read an MC series, I think that Gianna Darling's books are fun to start with because while they do lean into some of the kind of motorcycle club tropes of like having an old lady or whatever, the misogyny and the grossness tends to be lower perhaps than in some other motorcycle club romance series. Anyway, Lessons in Corruption is about Cressida and King. This is an age gap where the heroine is older. She is in her early 20s and King is 18. He is a senior in high school. So again, a little bit of a taboo situation there. I think some people like to lean into into the taboo with their age gap romances. Some of them want there to be like the least possible taboo involved in an age gap, and I think either is totally fine, but this one has a little bit more of a taboo, I guess you could say, going on. King is just absolutely taken with this woman who he ends up, I think, having a little bit of a fling with before the school year starts. She has no idea that he is going to be her student, and then of course he ends up in her class, and she's like, shit, I don't know what to do. I found this one really fun. Jenna Darling has this way with writing that I think makes her books feel, I want to say, deeper than they are, but she does a lot with her prose to really make you feel things, and I think that she is a true romantic at heart. So I really enjoyed this series. I don't know if this is like my favorite of the entire series, but it does kind of kick it off. There are other age gaps, I would say, in this series, but this is a good place to start. And lastly, I have Ignite by Melanie Harlow. This is one that I think, again, kind of flies under the radar. Maybe I am just projecting that, I'm not really sure. I think that Melanie Harlow's recent stuff has been popular on Kindle Unlimited, though I have not seen a lot of people talk about or enjoy those books. Not to be, you know, a hater. I'm not a hater here. But I will say, I think this series, I wish I could remember the name of it, is her superior series. Like, it's such a fun book series. So many different tropes within it, but specifically Ignite is about Winnie and Dex. He is a firefighter. She is I don't know what her position is at the beginning of this book, but she becomes the nanny for Dex. The thing I liked so much about this one was that the children in the story that Winnie is nannying are so charming and so delightful, and the chemistry between Winnie and Dex is so palpable. There were so many scenes in this book that I was like, wow, this is actually like pretty damn sexy. And I was surprised by that because I wouldn't say this is like the smuttiest book I've ever read. It's a little bit more sex forward than the books I tend to pick up. I really liked this. I think this is like a fun escape. I could also put this in like the small town romance category, and I'll try to remember to tell you where there's like overlap in tropes, but this one is just a whole lot of fun. I think often gets overlooked for other, you know, more popular age gap books. Next up, we have the enemies to lovers trope. I know so many of you are obsessed with this trope. For me, I feel like it's harder to find enemies to lovers books in contemporary romance that I really fall head over heels for, but I have 3 books that I genuinely love that I think are going to take you from fun, playful side of things to the more emotional, deep side of things. So first up, we have The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I know this is a cop-out answer. I know most of you have read this book, but had to include it just in case you hadn't. This book is about Olive and Ethan, and they are certainly enemies. Olive's more lucky twin sister is getting married at the beginning of the story, but her luck kind of runs out when she and the entire wedding party end up with food poisoning after, you know, attending this wedding. And so Olive goes in place of her sister on this honeymoon, this like all expenses paid kind of vacation that she won as a part of a sweepstakes. Again, Olive's sister, she's very lucky. Olive ends up going on this vacation with Ethan, who is the best man who Olive cannot stand. They butt heads, they don't get along, but in paradise, they have to pretend to be a married couple so that they can, again, like, you know, access to this vacation. It is just so much fun. I love the banter. I love the chemistry between characters. I like that there is a little bit of depth to the story as well. The ending of this book on occasion does kind of piss me off, the kind of like misunderstanding that ends up happening, but overall, I just think this is such a fun enemies to lovers, and this feels, again, like lighthearted in comparison to most enemies to lovers books, and I think that's fun and refreshing. Next up, we have one that definitely has a little bit more heat, a little bit more depth, and that would be Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. This is a male-male romance. It follows Shane and Ilya, who are hockey players on different teams. They're both considered to be like the best hockey players of their generation, like number 1 and number 2, constantly in competition. I guess publicly, they sort of hate each other, and that's part of their persona. Ever since, I want to say they were like 18 or like honestly like kind of young, before they were even in the professional leagues, they've kind of had a thing for each other, and they have this like series of hookups and encounters very, I don't want to say early on in the book, but sort of hookups eventually lead to something more. Don't normally love hookups as the way to get 2 characters to be together. I love sex as a sort of tension breaking moment in a romance. This one excels in making you want more, wanting these two to admit their feelings for each other. It is just so much fun to read, and you're just kind of yearning and pining. And I find that fun. I personally find that fun to be something that is lacking in some of the contemporary romance enemies to lover situations, that intense pining and yearning that I think a lot of us are craving. I think you're gonna find it in this book. And lastly, this is for my girls who are smart, who like books that are very intelligent, have characters who are going through a hard time, who perhaps are going to indulge in a nice caretaking scene moment. At First Bite by Olivia Dade is a book about Athena and Matthew. And at the beginning of the story, Athena is engaged to Matthew's younger brother, and she's really taken by this guy, and she's like, you know what, I'm gonna move to his town. We're going to start this life together. Like, I'm just very excited to see where things go. But last minute, Athena ends up getting dumped by Matthew's brother, of course, at the behest of Matthew. Athena finds this out absolutely from then on, just cannot stand Matthew. He was a little standoffish the first time she met him, and she was kind of sure of how to feel about him, but now that she knows that he is the reason that she has kind of ruined her own life, she's pretty pissed off. She's like, I moved to this town. I have quit my job. I am trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing with my life, and you are the cause of this. Okay. She ends up setting up shop in this little townhome that she ends up buying between Matthew's place and the brother's place, the guy that she was like going to marry. It's called the Spite House because it's like the skinny piece of land, and she was going to gift it anyway to her fiance, and she doesn't end up doing that. She ends up staying there and trying to build a life for herself, and in doing so, she keeps running into Matthew, you know, and they have to kind of like work through feelings of animosity towards each other. This one, I don't want to say is giving Pride and Prejudice, but a little bit. This like a fundamental misunderstanding of the other person's character. It is having to work through that through friendship, honestly. It's so nuanced and beautiful, and our heroine deals with mental health issues and depression, and that is very much present in this book. Love how that was handled. This book is really special, and I think it is going to be overlooked often for, you know, more of the buzzy titles. I think if you're a certain kind of reader, this is going to be the perfect enemies to lovers book for you. I know how y'all feel about enemies to lovers, okay? I've seen the buzz. I've seen the chatter. I know that this is a popular trope, but you know what trope goes much harder, in my humble opinion, than enemies to lovers? That would be friends to lovers, my friends. Love this trope. I just find the idea, knowing someone deeply and then discovering feelings for each other, so novel, so delightful, so charming. Like the possibility that you could be best friends with a man who is attractive and sweet and kind, and he could have been pining for you this entire time. Hello, I love that. Maybe not as much in real life. Like I don't think I would want my male best friends to do that, but I don't have any male best friends, so I think we're all good. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I know, cop-out answer, but Poppy and Alex are the blueprint. They are, in fact, friends to lovers excellence. In this book, we have Poppy, who is a travel writer, Alex, who is a teacher. They met back in college because they were from the same small town, and they would drive back, you know, on summers and you know, breaks between semesters together, and they developed this delightful friendship. They have opposite personalities. Poppy is fun-loving and free-spirited. Alex is a little bit more straight-laced and buttoned up, but they go on these summer vacations together until there is this sort of like dramatic parting, and we're not really sure what happened, but what we do know is that Poppy is gonna get back into contact with Alex after a couple of summers not spent together, ask if he wants to go on one last vacation together before Poppy ends up, I think, doing something else with her career. And Alex begrudgingly agrees, and they explore their feelings for each other, and we also get to see flashbacks to prior summers and how their relationship has evolved over time. It is so fun. It is so delightful. It is by far my favorite Emily Henry book. It's the most romance forward, I think, of all of her books, and I really enjoyed it. The ending of this book, oh, it gets me every time. Highly recommend if you haven't picked it up. Another Friends to Lovers book is a sapphic pick, and it is one of my favorite books, just period. It is so good. It's On the Same Page by Haley Cass. I talk about this book anytime I can because it is a KU book that I think, again, is going to be overlooked. This is an author that I had never heard anything about, I think, until I found her on KU, or maybe one of you recommended her to me, in which case, thank you, whoever you are. But On the Same Page is about Gianna and Riley. They've been best friends since college. They were roommates their freshman year of college, and they actually kind of butted heads. Their personalities definitely didn't align. They didn't get along. Through the course of college, they ended up kind of mending that relationship, becoming friends, and now in their 20s, they are kind of attached at the hip. These girls are constantly texting, kind of obsessed with each other, but like definitely aren't romantic, right? They both definitely mostly like men, so we think. It's just so fun seeing these two realize that they have romantic feelings for each other. To me, again, it feels like a natural progression. I think a lot of us end up dating people that we were friends with, you know, previously, and I loved seeing these two discover their feelings for each other. It feels fanficky at times in the most delightful way. I really liked the flashbacks and seeing why these two didn't get along initially. I liked seeing the character growth. It's just such a fun book, and I really need to read more from Haley Cass in the future. But again, if you're looking for good friends to lovers, this is it. And lastly, we have Love Light Farms by BK Borison. You thought that I would put this book in Small Town, or that I would pick a different BK Borison book, but Light Farms, again, is the blueprint. It is the start of our love for Miss BK. I love this book. The heroine of the story is running a Christmas tree farm that is, I want to say, failing, but things just keep popping up to where she is sort of unable to turn a profit in the way that she wants to, and she's really trying to turn it around so that she can keep this amazing place going in her small town. It's been here for years and years, but she is, you know, recently the owner of it. She sees an opportunity. She's like, you know what, maybe I should take that opportunity. This opportunity is a competition in which the most delightful like couple and their small business are going to get an infusion of cash from a travel blogger, I want to say, who's like doing a giveaway, but you have to prove that you're like in a relationship, I guess. And so she enlists the help of her best friend, who has kind of had a thing for her for a while. I mean, she doesn't know, but we do as readers. And we get to see these two discover their feelings for each other. Heroine discovering that this guy has been like kind of obsessed with her forever. It is so sweet. It has all of the amazing Christmas feels that you could read this any time of year. I think of all of the books that I've read in sort of like the small town sort of side of things, this one feels the most like Gilmore Girls. So if you like that sort of thing, you'd really enjoy this book. Again, friends to lovers, but also small town. Okay, emotional devastation time. Let's talk about second chance romances. I think if you like second chance romances, you're a bit of a glutton for punishment. You're someone who wants to hurt a little bit. So I selected 3 books that for the most part are pretty emotionally devastating, especially the first 2. So you might think, okay, Kennedy Ryan writes second chance romances. I'm going to select before I let go. That's where you're wrong, my friend. I think you should read Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. This is a book that has really done numbers on KU. I think a lot of people have discovered this book through KU. But again, I think because Kennedy Ryan's newest series has been so popular, I wanted to draw attention to one of her backlist titles, and Long Shot is so emotionally devastating, but so worth the read. This book's about Iris and August. They have this kind of meeting, I want to say, in college, and they have this instant chemistry and instant attraction. It proves challenging because Iris is actually already dating someone else. So she experiences attraction for August, and he wants nothing more than for her to break up with her boyfriend and end up with her. But because she is a loyal woman, she ends up marrying the man that she has been dating since college. He is a professional basketball player eventually, and so is August. I think they are actually like on the same time they get drafted, like kind of in competition, whatever. Iris unfortunately faces abuse at the hands of her husband. And this story is really about Iris leaving that relationship and trying to find a new way of life for herself. It's also about the way that August comes in and supports her through that. It's a second chance because they almost didn't really get a first chance. I don't know. I think second chance is something that like is sort of debated. Can you have a connection, not date, and it be second chance? I personally believe so. I love this book. I think it is such a worthwhile read. Again, check the trigger warnings. And there's domestic abuse here, not of course between hero and heroine, but heroine and her previous spouse. So definitely important to note. But I really love this book, and I think it is very worth the read. Next up, we have Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. I recommend this book anytime I can because this is the first, I would say, maybe the second, marriage in trouble or we've been divorced and are getting back together romance that I've actually really enjoyed and understood. So this one's about Ren and Ellis, and they got pregnant with their son Sam back when they were pretty young. I want to say our heroine was like 18 or something like that. Ren and Ellis were very much in love and decided to get married and form a life together, but over the years and through some of the struggles and things that they've gone through, they couldn't really make it work. They couldn't really communicate as fully with each other as they want, so they end up divorced. Now 5 years later, they're bringing their son to his freshman year of college. On the way back, they're going to go on a road trip together and reflect on the journey that it has been raising their son. But it turns into a time for these two to reconnect and discover why these two are actually right for each other, how much they've grown in the past 5 years from the things that have happened in their marriage previously. So I love the story. I just think it is so charming. It's really sexy and deeply emotional. And I mean, I would read anything that Tara writes, but this book in particular is just such a winner. Lastly, a book that is a little bit less emotionally devastating if you're looking for something a little bit more chill. Just My Type by Fallon Ballard is so fun. This is about 2 high school sweethearts that ended up breaking up and are coming back together because they are working at the same company. They're working for this kind of like online publication. It's a little BuzzFeedy, and they're competing for one writing spot, I guess, like one role. They have to write their own columns to kind of make this work. Also, the fact that they're in competition is public knowledge, and they're kind of trying to go viral on social media with their respective things that they're doing. Lana is sort of a serial dater, long-term relationship, monogamous type, and Seth is someone who definitely is not that way. They're going to swap roles. Lana is going to try to stay single and write about that. Seth is going to give serious dating a try and write about that. And through this process, these two end up reconnecting. I really liked this book because it's got an emotional depth to it, but it also has a lightheartedness and a funniness that I think is sometimes very welcome in a second chance romance, which can sometimes feel a little bit overwrought, you know? I really like this one, and I think that Fallon Ballard, just generally speaking, tends to be an author who is not only amazing, but also overlooked. Triangles are my favorite shape, and I think they're maybe some of yours as well. I've got 3 love triangle romances for you that I think do a really good job at making all 3 legs of the triangle viable choices. What a novel idea. I really hate when I pick up a love triangle romance, let's say Twilight, and like, you know that Jacob is not a contender. He's not going to be the one that Bella ends up with because she doesn't want him, right? The love triangle is very much one-sided there. Now, these love triangles are not. So first up, we have What He Doesn't Know by Candy Steiner. This one's a little bit emotionally devastating. Charlie, who is married to a man named Cameron, they're going through a really hard time. They are barely talking at this point. And then comes in Reese. And Reese is this guy that Charlie had a crush on when she was younger, kind of a childhood best friend sort of situation. She ends up reconnecting with Reese and maybe thinking that it's time to leave her marriage. You know, it's been many years of her feeling unsatisfied and her not feeling seen. And the spark that she feels with Reese is pretty undeniable. So who is she going to end up choosing? You'll find out in this book, which is technically a duology, but I do think it's worth your time if you were just looking for something to get truly invested in for a couple of days. I highly recommend. The series series. Next, we have a book that couldn't be more different, in that it is so unserious, but also just like kind of fun in a trashy way. It's Steal You Away by Victoria Ashley. This book is about Kennedy, Dax, and Coulson. Kennedy has been dating Dax for quite a while at this point, a few years, and she's just not entirely sure about this relationship. She's not sure if this is the guy that she like wants to spend the rest of her life with. In comes Dax's younger brother, Coulson, who has been obsessed with Kennedy for years and will do anything to, guessed it, steal her away from his older brother, Dax. It is so fun. I really didn't like Dax's character or really see him as a true contender here. He definitely holds out for a while, trying to win back Kennedy's affection. But this book is really about Kennedy and Coulson and their connection, and it is so fun. I liked this because I don't want to say there's like no sense of place with this book, but this really brings me back to like the 2015, 2016 could be set anywhere sort of books. I feel like now authors are really trying to play up the small town sort of setting or have a horse girl romance. It doesn't have any of that. This is like very bare bones, but in a way that is, oh, so fun. I don't know how else to say it. It's just a fun book. It's a fun book if you're looking for a good love triangle. Sometimes you want some smutty KU goodness, right? Lastly, I have a book that I would say is more similar to What He Doesn't Know by Candy Steiner, and that would be Tangled Lies by Pam Godwin. This book and this like trilogy, I guess you could say, follows Danny, Cole, and Trace. Danny has been with Cole for quite a while until he ends up missing in action and is presumed dead, and she ends up dating this guy named Trace instead, who couldn't be more different than Cole. Cole is kind of this like rough and tumble motorcycle kind of guy. Like he rides motorcycles and he's like, I think maybe ex-army or something like that. Trace is very like straight-laced and he like owns a hotel or something to that effect. Cole comes back into Danny's life and she has to decide if she wants to be with Cole or Trace. And again, she built a life with Cole. She's kind of grieving him and now he's back and she's like, shit, this is my like first love. But also I'm really finding this connection with Trace, and you genuinely don't know until the last book who she's going to pick. And I love that. So this one's a lot of fun. Let's move on to a different trope though, shall we? Grumpy Sunshine. First up, a total classic, Culty by Mariana Zapata. It's an age gap romance between Sal and Reiner, but the age gap is not super dramatic in the sense that Sal is 27. Reiner is her soccer coach. So Sal plays professional women's soccer and she's trying to improve and get better. And Reiner sees a lot of potential in her. And he is like a former star. He was a really, really, really talented player. And in fact, was Sal's most favorite player. She has a little bit of hero worship going on, but such a fun Grumpy Sunshine romance. I think that Mariana Zapata generally is the queen of a Grumpy Sunshine romance, but this is probably my favorite of all of her books. I love the slow burn romance between these two. Again, she's also the queen of the slow burn. It's a really, really fun time. I think that Grumpy Sunshine can really not work for me. An author is not good at writing a sunshiny character, and I genuinely believe that Mariana Zapata in her real life probably is a quirky sunshine girl because it comes off so genuine and so real in all of her stories. So I think if you're looking for, again, something with a little bit of an age gap taboo, a little bit of like a coach athlete sort of vibe, a little bit of worship, it's so good. It's so good. Next up is a book that I really don't think enough people talk about, and it's Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. You know, I see a lot of love for It Happened One Summer, and don't get me wrong, it's my favorite book by her, but a close second is Tools of Engagement. This is a kind of home reno style romance. We've got Bethany, who is competing with one of her family members in sort of like a competition style show. The entire family does home renos as a living. They are in construction, and Bethany is really good at interior design, but no one takes her seriously when it comes to the rest of home building and in the actual like architectural design process of home building. And so she's going to compete with her brother and they're going to try, I guess, and build like the best possible house. To do this, Bethany is going to enlist the help of Wes, who is, I want to say inexperienced, but he is a slightly younger guy. I actually think this might be a little bit of an age gap as well now that I'm thinking about it, but she enlists the help of this really sweet, really sunshiny guy named Wes to help her execute her plan. And Bethany, she's a little bit jaded. She's a little bit of a grump, and you find out why that is over the course of the story. And I think the reason that this book stands out to me, especially when it comes to, you know, Tessa Bailey books, there's actual character growth on the part of both Bethany and Wes. Wes is actually dealing with some pretty hard shit in his life as well. Bethany is definitely growing to trust people and be less anxious, which I think is why she puts up so many walls and comes off as such a grump. It's such a good book, honestly. And I do, again, like the kind of home reno setting as well. I think that was a lot of fun. Last, Actor Age Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. I've talked about this book, I feel like a half dozen times, maybe a dozen times here on this channel, but I love Eve and I love Jacob. Essentially, Eve is trying to maintain her trust fund by getting a job because she has flitted about from job to job, and her parents and her grandparents are just sick of it. They're like, girl, we are going to cut you off if you do not get a job. And so she runs across a job, kind of literally, and ends up working at a bed and breakfast as a chef. Jacob is the owner of this bed and breakfast, the manager of this bed and breakfast, and he is autistic and hella grumpy. He does not understand Eve's bubbly personality, and they really butt heads at the beginning beginning of the story. I don't think I'd call it enemies to lovers because Eve is never really upset at Jacob, but she doesn't fully understand him at first and why he is so, grumpy. As the story develops, they have a relationship that is truly enviable. I love their communication skills. I love Eve's confidence. I love how Jacob really just knows who he is. I really, really love this book, and I think that you really will too if you're looking for a good Grumpy Sunshine. Small town romances have really exploded in the past few years, and it was kind of a challenge to narrow down what small town romances I think you should pick up and which ones are maybe less talked about. I think that a lot of these books get recycled over and over again, and when we think small town, we normally think Elsie Silver, but there's not an Elsie Silver. I branched out a little bit. First up, we have Beard Science by Penny Reed. This is the third book in the Winston Brothers series. You can pick up any of them in whatever order you choose. I feel like you could pick up the first book first. It's also a good one, but the third's my favorite. This book is about Jennifer, who is a social media star. She is a baker who is really popular for her banana cake recipe, and her parents have found a way to kind of capitalize on how good she is at baking, and she has this really, say, ironclad sort of look and behavior online, but her parents are very much like, you're a grown adult, but also you're going to be our social media star. It's kind of toxic, and Jennifer's really freaking sick of it, and she needs the help of Cletus, our hero, to get out of it. Now, Cletus is a hero who is a little bit unconventional. I think he's a little bit autistic coded, though I don't think that's ever explicitly said, but this book is so fun because it is set in this delightful small town with a whole cast of characters who you absolutely grow to love. If you're looking for an unconventional romance with some slightly unconventional characters, I would highly recommend giving this a go. Next up, I have Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This book I could have put in a few different categories. The heroine definitely could fit the sort of grumpy sunshine trope, her being the grumpy, him being the sunshine. Emily and Jack are the heroine and hero of this story respectively. Emily and Jack used to go to university together, and they didn't get off on the right foot. Emily is just wondering why Jack seems to kind of be an asshole to her, but to no one else. It seems like everybody likes this guy, and yet he can't help but piss her off. And that gets a little challenging when he ends up getting a job as an elementary school teacher, I think it's elementary school, in her hometown, her small town that she is from and he is not. She has to face the fact that he has moved in next door, is renovating a house, and is making her life a little bit of a living hell. It's a lot of fun to read. You could also probably put this in the enemies to lovers category. Grumpy Sunshine, enemies to lovers, small town. I like it. I really like the series in general. It is the, I think, Rome, Kentucky series. All of the books are super fun, but I really, really like the romance in particular in this one. Then lastly, a book that I have not read in quite a while, but I really enjoyed when I did, is In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. This is a book about Noah and Sam. Sam used to live in the small town with, I want to say, her grandmother, and now she is back to ensure that this farm stays in the family. She's going to run it herself. That's kind of challenging to do as sort of a one-woman thing. She enlists the help of a guy she used to be friends with in high school. It is an interesting book. I think that the kind of beginning of the story felt a little bit weird for me. You've got sort of an enemies to lovers thing almost, in that Noah's a little bit upset that Sam left without really saying anything and that their friendship sort of fizzled out, so there's a little bit of animosity at the beginning. Quickly it turns into something different. There is a marriage of convenience also in this book. There are a lot of delightful my wife moments, if that is something that really strikes your fancy, but I think what stood out to me is that this one definitely had a strong small town feeling, but not in a conventional sense. I think when I think small town romance, I actually think southern small towns. I think, again, kind of horsey, ranchy sort of small towns, but this one I think is set in Rhode Island. Definitely has that sort of northeastern vibe, which I really appreciated. It felt different than a lot of the other small town romances I pick up. Now, this might not be a trope that you think of like the other ones, in that it's maybe a little bit less popular in recent years, but workplace romances are still very much kicking and very much alive, and I have three I think honestly are some of my favorite books on this list. First up, we have Attachments by Rainbow Rowell, and I think the best way to describe the feeling of this book is if you are a huge fan of The Office and the Jim and Pam relationship, that pining and that yearning in the first couple of seasons. Yeah, I think you're really gonna like this book. About our main characters, Beth and Lincoln. Beth is corresponding back and forth with her best friend over a work server, they're emailing back and forth, and these emails are actually monitored by a gentleman named Lincoln. And in reading the correspondence between Beth and her friend, Lincoln is really drawn to Beth and her personality and how funny she is. I think what I liked most about this story is that it is a romance not born of physical attraction, but of intellect and of humor and of personality. I love how much Lincoln is obsessed with Beth, not in a weird way, but how drawn to her he is, and how he wants to connect with her in real life, but isn't sure how to without coming across as weird and creepy. I just really love this book. It's not smutty. It definitely is more on the slightly literary side of things. Not that I would say this is profoundly literary, but I love this book, and I think this is one that not a lot of people have picked up, and they definitely should. Actually due for a reread soon. of this one because I remember adoring this. Next, I have historical romance. Yeah, I had to sneak one on this list. Sue me, okay? I feel like not enough people pick up historicals, and this is one of my favorite books just of all time, and that's The Governess Game by Tessa Dare. This is the kind of historical that is really accessible to people who read books like Bridgerton but aren't really willing to dive deeper or like pick up other historicals. Hey, I get it. Historicals can feel a little bit, I don't know, old-fashioned, stuffy, whatever. I love them, but I understand people's hesitancy to pick them up. Governess Game is so fun though because it is just a fun romance set in a historical setting. You've got Alexandra, you've got Chase. She is going to be the nanny for Chase's two nieces, or governess, I guess you could say, for his two nieces. He has always been a bit of a playboy, an unserious type, but he is trying to reform himself, a reformed rake, if you will, because he wants to be there for these two little girls, and the little girls make this story so fun. They have like funerals for their dolls. They are really morbid in their sense of humor, but it's so fun. It is such a fun book to read. I think that everyone would benefit from reading this book. I think it's just genuinely so good. This whole series by Tessa Dare is probably one of my favorite series of all time. Like you could pick any of these historicals up and just have a riotous good time with them. So highly recommend. And then lastly, probably the most traditional workplace romance I'm going to recommend is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is also a dating marriage of convenience kind of story because Iris works for Declan, but Declan needs to get married in order to get access to his inheritance. And that actually proves pretty challenging because no one wants to marry Declan. Iris decides she's going to do it, I think probably in exchange for money. I can't remember all of the details, but I really liked this one. It's a slightly longer romance, but I really liked seeing how Iris and Declan got to know each other on a more personal level after working together for a while and going from this, again, sort of like a little bit of animosity to really, you know, loving each other. So I really like this book. It's my favorite of the Lauren Asher books. And then let's talk about the last category, shall we? Brother's best friend / other forbidden taboos that are similar, you know, like best friend, sister, or whatever. Problematic summer romance. I know I said I wasn't going to do it for age gap, but I didn't say that I wasn't going to do it for Brother's best friend, okay? This is the best Brother's best friend romance for a lot of reasons that I'm not going to spoil, but Maya and Connor have my freaking heart. Maya is pining for her brother's best friend Connor for many years. There's a little bit of an age gap there because Connor is, of course, her older brother's best friend, and they go on this vacation together, not solely together. They're going to see Maya's brother get married, and her and Connor have to fight their attraction for each other after not talking for a little bit, even though they used to be in correspondence and friends for a couple of years. I really love seeing the flashbacks. I love how the story is written. I love the chemistry between hero and heroine. Sure, at times the age gap is really hammered home too much, but I'm okay with that because the chemistry is palpable. The sex scenes are impeccable. It's just Allie Hazelwood at her best. I love this book. Now for slightly older, less cop-outy answers, we have The Right Move by Liz Tomford. This book's about Ryan and Indy. Ryan is Indy's best friend's older brother, who is a professional basketball player, and who Indy is moving in with after she breaks up with her long-term boyfriend. She's kind of heartbroken, honestly. She's not looking for love, and neither is Ryan, but end up fake dating because Ryan needs to prove to his team that he is captain material. Indy agrees to this, but of course they end up falling in love. It is such a good romance. It is slow burn. It is thoughtful. There is a particular moment where our hero remembers exactly how our heroine takes her coffee. It doesn't sound that dramatic, that impressive, but it got me right here. It got me in the feels. It's so sweet, so romantic. I highly recommend this book if you haven't picked it up yet. Many of you have, but I mean, hey, if you've missed it, if you've been under a rock, you should give this a go. And lastly, The Chase by Elle Kennedy. This one is about Summer and Fitzy, aka Colin. I think it's like Fitzgerald. Summer is a college student, as is Fitz, aka Fitzy, and he is really close friends with Summer's brother. These two end up rooming with each other and having to fight their feelings for each other, and it is just a whole lot of fun. If you like a good sports romance with a heroine who is honestly such a freaking delight, I would highly recommend this book. Our heroine is definitely, I don't want to say non-traditional, but I feel like often you get heroines who are a little bit of like wallflowers or not like other girls. Summer is blonde. She's beautiful. I think she has like ADHD, and she's just a little bit like unconventional in her personality. I really liked this book. I thought it was really fun. I like the contrast between her sunshine and his totally grumpy but a little bit like stoic sort of thing going on. It is just such a fun brother's best friend kind of romance. So that is it, my friends. Those are 3 books for 10 trope categories. Let me know if you would like to see a video like this again. I could potentially do different tropes if you would like, or maybe like different sub-genres. I'd consider doing like mafia romance, dark romance, like things like that. I was like, those aren't really tropes. Those are like sub-genres, you know? But if you want to see like a sub-genre version of this, or again, different tropes, let me know. I had fun time filming this list together, chatting with all of you. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Love y'all so much, and I will see you in the next one.